I'm looking for, you as a senator, and I'm sure that we'll get it because you've done a great job with the things that you've done so far. But one of the things I don't think that people do enough is to run it up the flagpole, what we do well here. For instance, I have a daughter now who's studying abroad in Ecuador, and she has autism, and she's recovered from autism. And she's been in 2 different districts, Marshall and Cambridge. And then I have a sister who has disabilities who lives in Illinois, and there's 30 years difference between them, but the thing is, the outcomes for kids in Wisconsin, based on the ownership, based on the way that this state thinks about people who have diverse needs, always. I mean, the Individuals with Disability Education Act came into existence in 1975. Wisconsin was serving those families.
Yeah, way before
that. Before it became federal law. In other words, we are going to do this because it's the right thing to do. And if they wouldn't do it from the human decency side of it, they said, you invest on the front end, and then you don't have to spend as much on the back end. Okay, so my daughter is going to be a taxpayer, making decent money and paying into the system instead of, being a drain on the human services programs, which if she had to, she had to. But what I see so often is Democrats backing down to this and not being proud of the fact that we serve families with disabilities before it became federal law. For the last 20 years, we've been in the top 10 in ACT scores in the country for 20 years straight. And this is year after year, and this last year we're different a little bit. Well, duh. And it's like, there's a correlation. There's so many things. So we have kids who are college bound, who obviously are getting what they need. We have students with special needs who are getting what they need. And then all these employers, where they go when they're looking for people to work. They recruit in Minnesota and Wisconsin and Iowa. There is a correlation between the money and the investiture in education and the quality of the workforce. And so I guess I'm looking for that. I just see too many Democrats not standing proud about that. And it bothers me because, when you have people who are pulling up the rear, and this business with, right now the thing with the voucher school program. The voucher school program, so we know that those people that are sending their children to private school, and I went to one for 8 years, my husband went to one for 12 years. I could tell you stories about the fact that in that cloistered environment, people have access to children who shouldn't have access to children. And the fact that they don't have teachers there do not have to have a license. Well, guess what? There's nothing to revoke. You can continue to work there if you have an ethics violation. Guess what? They don't have to do background checks. They are not required. They mealy mouth around and say, well, yeah, to get insurance, they have to have background checks. Well, there's several agencies that are giving accreditation to these private schools, and one of them is the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. Okay, well, we all know what happened to some of these priests with 200 kids in deaf schools. It's like, okay, do we have the fox guarding the chicken house or what? So I'm getting very concerned that we just are getting more and more of this privatization and this demeaning of our education system, which is great. And the fact that when No Child Left Behind came along, and it was all about accountability in education, and there was a reason for that. There were states like Texas and Florida that needed it. I mean, they were pulling up the rear. And so for states like Minnesota and Wisconsin to be taking lessons on education from states like Florida and Ohio and Texas is absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, I'm sorry, I get very passionate about this. I'm a very happy customer. My children were raised and went to two rural school districts, Marshall and Cambridge. And if you were in some of those classrooms, I mean, you just wouldn't believe some of the things that they do and how beneficial it is to have all children with special needs and typical children together to the extent that they're able to be together. And this business of separating them and sending kids off to kids with special needs now, they want to send kids with special needs to be able to go to private schools and have $13,000 in voucher money, go with them. Well, guess what happens? They get there, there's no special educators, there's no related services, speech therapists, occupational therapists, to help them sit there and attend and do what they need to do to learn. So guess what? A couple months they come back to the public school. Does that money follow them back?
No.
They get to keep it. And that is fraud. And I have not heard one person say that is fraud.
They're there on the third Friday of September.
Yes.
They get
They get it the whole rest of the year.
Nicely put, Dana. Sorry.
But in essence, you're saying that we need to kind of blow our own horn more
Yes.
and say we have a good
Yeah.
system here. It's not broken yet, you know, to quit taking money out of it, and it's,
You get what you pay for.
Yeah, and stick up for our teachers.
the thing that concerns me is the way and we've seen this before, is they take money away, they make people make do with less, they make the classes get bigger, they make the teachers take on additional responsibilities, and so then, you know, after several years of that, they say, look at how broken the system is, we need to fix this, and it's like, well,
Yeah,
what do you
their
expect?
kids with the Beamers in the parking lot got vouchers to go to their private schools. You know, I mean, it's just wrong. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
Well, just since we're talking on education, have you ever heard Luther Olson's vision for education? And he's been preaching it for years, essentially that we can't fund public schools, that they will wither away in these grasses. So they are. Have you heard Luther Olson's presentation?
No.
Now his wife, and they're not actually married according to a pastor. But I'm not. There is a very scandalous story though. He co-opted CESA 6, and CESA 6 actually produces videos of this vision of defunding schools and it might be something that you
I
should see.
should, yeah,
And I could easily you into it. But anyways, I do talk about education for it, and I appreciate the passion, and I appreciate when people talk about the good things in education. Some of the communities, maybe not many in this district, but there are some communities that have more diversity than Cambridge, and Wisconsin does have a crisis teaching non-majority students to read. And I can show you that those scores, where it's not actually about an achievement, it's about serving. So yes, Wisconsin has many good things going for it, but there are some issues that we do. And defunding schools isn't going to solve that problem. But I hope that we'll have an honest dialogue about where we're strong and what we need to do to deliver that same level of skills to diverse populations in some of the communities that you will want to do well in. It will be very important to acknowledge that those areas.
And that is very important. And there is an achievement gap. And the 20-year-old Milwaukee School Choice Program, which under Governor Thompson, I think it was founded. Anyway, it's 20 years old, okay? So 2010, DPI finally gets them to test the voucher schools, the choice program schools in Milwaukee. And what did they find? So they wouldn't test those kids. So we know we have Milwaukee Public Schools that has all kinds of problems, riddled with problems, and they admit it, okay? And then you have the choice schools who are, pulling the cream off because only 2% of kids at the choice schools have special needs. And the special needs they have are kind of lightweight. They're kind of little attention, little this. You don't find seriously disabled students in those schools, okay? 30% of Milwaukee Public Schools has special needs. Okay, you try doing cost averaging on that to see how that works out as far as expenses go, okay? So finally, in 2010, they were, the choice schools were tested. Well, guess what? Milwaukee public school system, is bad as it is, tied them in reading and beat them by 10 points in math after 20 years. After 20 years. So what does the governor do? Okay? Governor is not that dumb. He says, wow, that's some data that I don't want to get out there. So now he's telling everybody, for the choice schools, we're not going to test them. Every year our kids get their butts tested up, every single year. And it's good data because you can judge a kid from year to year if they're making progress and where you need to work on. So now they're not going to test them. You know what they're going to judge them on? Graduation rate. Who has the highest graduation rate in the country? Graduation rate? Wisconsin. So Wisconsin has the highest graduation rate in the country, which I left off that list of our great schools. So now they're taking that data away because as we start to pull away as the public schools continue to show that they are better than the voucher schools, people won't let that data get out. So this kind of stuff, this duplicity, has to be exposed. And I think it's just really, really important. So the achievement gap is very much there, and it has to be addressed. And if the voucher program gets outside of Milwaukee, I think it's a shame, because it hasn't proven that it's a success in Milwaukee, and that's where we need it.
Can I be a nuisance?
Yeah.
A friend of ours lost their child, was it today or yesterday? She committed suicide because of the way they treat her at school. And somebody told me today the principals do not, that she said, her principal said that these, it's not the people that died, but somebody else told me about it, that the principals do say that they can't do anything about it. But if kids bring a knife or something to school, they send them home, don't they? Expel them. If they see bullies, they should take these bullies and ship them home to their mothers and fathers until they're responsible enough to come back to school. You've got to, our laws have got to do something about this.
Okay.
Because look at all the children we've lost to bullying. This is getting to be outrageous. I remember when I was a kid in the 7th, 8th grade, and I was chubby and fat, and they used to call me fat all the time, and they'd hit me in the arm, and guess who got caught when I retaliated? I did. I got caught. But you know, this bullying. You know, I never thought of committing suicide, but I surely felt bad at times because of the way I was bullied.
Yeah,
And
okay.
this has got to stop.
More and more education. This is higher education, like the improve and keep the funding for the tech schools, and then the UW system. And that brings me to something. When if you do have support for the UW system, then you're gonna get on your side because your husband works for the UW system, correct? So, and are you?
Well, that's why it needs to
but-
come
but
from you. I can say, people have told me.
I know. But what I'm getting at is, it's going to be a condensed time in this election. When it happens, are you prepared? Or I think you should try to get on the local radio stations for it in Watertown and Juneau, and see if they'll get you there. Just to have they must have public affairs.
Yeah, I was just
people,
on
and then
WFAA the other day.
talk to the Watertown Times, the Beaver Dam paper. I don't know if Juneau has a paper or not.
WHA?
WHA. I don't know if they go down as far as state senators or not. Do they?